The sun dipped low over the ancient floodplains of late Cretaceous Alberta, casting a fiery glow across the dense forests and winding rivers. For millions of years, these lands had echoed with the footsteps of giants. But on this particular evening, the earth trembled with a different intensity. The awakening of an apex predator. Beneath a cluster of towering conifers, the ground shifted slightly as a pair of golden eyes snapped open. A massive shape, camouflaged by shadows, slowly rose. The creature's scales shimmered subtly as light spilled across them. This was Albertosaurus, a predator feared by every living beast in this prehistoric world. His breath came out in slow, heavy gusts, fogging the cool evening air as he surveyed his surroundings with focused intensity. The hunger in his gut twisted like a blade. He hadn't fed in nearly 2 days, and in the wild Cretaceous plains, 2 days meant everything. His powerful legs stretched, claws scraping the soft earth, and with a low growl, he stepped forward, body tense with instinctual purpose. The forest was alive with sound. Insects buzzed in thick clouds. Distant leaves rustled with the movement of smaller herbivores. The wind carried with it a tapestry of scents: prey, danger, rivals. Albertosaurus raised his head and inhaled deeply. One scent stood out: a herd of Pachyrhinosaurus grazing near the river. But he wasn't alone. As he began moving through the brush, the faint rumble of another predator echoed through the distance. A deep, resonant roar traveled across the valley. Albertosaurus paused, tail stiffening. He recognized the voice. It belonged to a younger male, a challenger who had recently begun claiming territory close to his own. Albertosaurus, however, wasn't ready to surrender anything. Moving with remarkable stealth for his size, he slinked through the vegetation, approaching the open field ahead. The sun's glow intensified behind him, throwing his silhouette across the ground like a monstrous. The air grew heavier as the two predators circled each other, their massive footsteps shaking the ground beneath them. The weakened Pachyrhinosaurus herd had already scattered toward the far end of the floodplain, leaving nothing between the rivals except the echoing tension of an ancient world built on dominance and survival. Albertosaurus stood still for a moment, chest rising and falling with steady, controlled breaths. His experience radiated through every movement, from the calculated sway of his tail to the way he kept his weight balanced on his hind limbs. He had fought many challenges before, but this one felt different. This young male was bold, overflowing with raw strength, but lacking the wisdom of scars earned through years of survival. The younger male snarled, head low, saliva dripping from curved teeth. His orange eyes flicked with impatience. He wanted this territory, and he wanted it now. A sudden gust of wind rippled through the valley, carrying the scent of the river and the fading smell of the herbivore herd. The sun dipped further behind the forest, turning the sky into streaks of crimson. It felt as if the entire world paused to watch what was about to unfold. Then, without warning, the young male charged. His feet pounded the earth, sending dust flying. Albertosaurus braced himself, lowering his neck and angling his body to the side. The moment the challenger reached him, the older predator twisted sharply, ramming his shoulder against the juvenile's ribs. The impact echoed like a drumbeat through the valley. The younger male stumbled, but quickly regained footing, roaring angrily. He lunged again, this time snapping his jaws toward Albertosaurus's throat. But age had sharpened Albertosaurus's instincts like a blade. He shifted just enough for the bite to miss, then countered with a violent swipe of his skull, slamming the young male across the jaw. Blood sprayed, teeth clattered, the ground shook. The challenger reeled backward, dazed. The night settled over the floodplain like a heavy shroud. Crickets hummed from the tall grass, and the distant calls of smaller dinosaurs echoed through the dimming sky. A thin mist rose from the nearby river, snaking across the ground like drifting ghosts. Beneath that pale haze, two colossal predators still faced each other, their bodies battered, their breaths ragged, and their eyes blazing with primal fury. Albertosaurus held his ground, his chest rising in deep, controlled breaths. Blood trickled down his shoulder where the challenger's teeth had torn flesh. Yet his stance remained steady, dominant, unbreakable. Each step he now took was measured, firm, echoing with authority that came from years of surviving in a world built on violence. A few meters away, the younger male swayed, weakened but not yet defeated. His side still poured dark blood, staining the earth beneath him. His pride had pushed him into this battle. Now survival alone kept him standing. His growls were lower, strained, no longer the roars of a challenger, but the warnings of a wounded beast unsure whether to flee or fight. The river beside them roared louder as the wind shifted. The moonlight reflected across its surface in broken silvery lines, shimmering almost like a blade. For a brief moment, both predators turned their heads toward the water. The scent of the Pachyrhinosaurus herd drifted faintly from downstream, but neither hunter had the strength to pursue. This battle was not about food anymore. It was about rule, about legacy, about the crown of the floodplain. Albertosaurus advanced again, slow but deliberate. The earth trembled beneath his talons. The young male attempted to circle him, trying to find an opening for a last desperate attack. But his limbs shook with every step, and his vision blurred. The wound on his side glistened darkly in the moonlight, and every movement sent shock waves of pain through his ribs. Still, he roared. A roar filled not with confidence. The night deepened, washing the floodplain in hues of silver and shadow. The stars glittered like cold embers above the primeval world. The forest had grown silent after the battle, as if all creatures sensed that something monumental had occurred. Even the insects buzzed softer, careful not to disturb the ancient king who now stood at the river's edge. Albertosaurus stared across the dark water, his reflection rippling with every breath. Wounds throbbed along his shoulder and flanks, but pain mattered little to a creature built for survival. He had lived through storms, droughts, hunts, and rivalries, but tonight's battle was unlike the others. It had tested every instinct, every ounce of strength, every skill he had learned throughout his life. Behind him, the fallen challenger lay motionless. Moonlight brushed over the young male's still body, highlighting the deep wounds that had ended his bid for supremacy. His once bright eyes had dimmed. His limbs, which had carried hope, ambition, and recklessness, now lay lifeless in the grass. The earth around him was stained with the evidence of his final struggle. Yet there was a strange peace in the scene, the quiet acceptance of nature's unbreakable law. Only the strongest rule. After several minutes, Albertosaurus stepped toward the defeated rival. He lowered his head, sniffing the still form. The scent of blood had begun to cool, mixing with the earthy smell of the riverbank. There was no movement, no breath, no final twitch of resistance. The challenger's fall was complete. A soft breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it a whisper of distant thunder. Storm clouds drifted lazily across the sky, signaling that rain would soon wash away the signs of the battle. The world always moved on quickly. Even after moments of monumental consequence, Albertosaurus turned and lifted his head, surveying his territory. From the forest's edge to the great river, from the rocky cliffside to the open plains,